And George? Okay, dear colleagues, good morning. Welcome back to day 2 of this roundtable on water financing and its special focus on the EU's Eastern partner countries. It's good to see so many of you back, and we had a great day yesterday. We learned from the Netherlands, OECD, and the Commission about priorities for water and water financing. We heard from senior officials from the EU's Eastern partner countries about their needs, their demands, their priorities, the pressures, the challenges. We looked at the enabling environment for finance and an innovative OECD tool to try and assess some of the barriers and what we might do to overcome them. We learned about domestic finance and challenges around tariffs and subsidies and the issues there. And finally, at the end of the day, we had a session on innovation and new approaches from within and from outside Eastern Partnership, and to generate ideas that could have possibility for replication. This morning, we've got two panel sessions, and then we're going to finish around about lunchtime. We'll have a coffee break in between to keep us fueled and keep us going. Our first session is on River Basin Management Planning, and I'm really pleased to introduce my good colleague over many years, Francesca Bernardini from the UNECE Water Convention, who's going to moderate this session for us. Francesca, please, the floor's yours. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Matthew. What about now? Yeah. Yes. Good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure for me to be here. So I'm Francesca Bernardini. I'm the chief of the Transboundary Cooperation section in the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and I've been working for almost 20 years on the Water Convention and the Protocol on Water and Health with the Eastern Partnership country to support their implementation. So very happy to be here. I'm afraid the organizer have done a mistake to give to an Italian the moderation of the session, but I'll do what I can. And I'm really sorry I missed yesterday's meeting, and I very much look forward to the discussion that we'll be having today, because as we all know, River Basin Management Plan are the pillar of the Water Framework Directive implementation. And their financing, they are the main means to achieve good water status, but also to achieve climate resilience. And obviously, their implementation requires substantial financing, which is challenging in many respects, and as we will hear from the speaker today. For administrative reason, the River Basin Management Plan go across borders, so also this financing challenge linked to how to put together, mobilize funding because of administrative border not matching the basin border. There's a dimension of the fact that the River Basin Management Plan often come from a bottom-up with a series of intervention locally needed, and therefore also mobilizing resources for them and their bankability is a challenge. And adding even more to that, for transboundary basins, which are the majority of the basins in the region, there's this dimension of multiple countries being involved and therefore having a coherent implementation and a rate of implementation in the basin, which actually serves the objective of the River Basin Management Plan. What we've seen in this region with national policy dialogue been running there almost 20 years is that this governance, this system of governance is indeed a very strong asset. And I think that many of the speakers, even if we're talking about finance, will go back to the issue of governance as a prerequisite for mobilizing finance. So this is the background for our session today, and I hope we'll have a very interactive session. So I also encourage the participant here and the participant online to intervene and ask questions and take the most out of the speaker that we have today, who are great experts. So let me introduce the panel. On my right, we have Mzia Giorgobiani, I hope I mentioned your name properly, who is the Deputy Minister for Regional Development and Infrastructure of Georgia. Tamara Kutonova, who's the manager of the National Policy Dialogue process in the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe Secretariat of the Water Convention. Then we have Jorge Constantin from the, sorry, following the line. We have Arnaud Devancet, who's the head of water in DG INPA. And we have Jorge Constantin, the last on my right, from the Ministry of Environment, Water and Forests of Romania. And we'll also have a speaker online, Mikhail Yanchuk, the head of the State Water Agency of Ukraine. So without further ado, I'd like to start with Zia, and I would very much invite you to share Georgia's experience in terms of the challenge and the successes that you're having in financing, in particular, water and sanitation services in your country. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you once again for the opportunity to be the speaker of this really valuable and interesting session. And especially when we are talking about the water management and about in general, the water, we always are thinking that the water is just another resources. This is something which is really need in addition of our life for the economic development. And considering of this, we try to more deeply understand what kind of needs is needed. And when we are talking about the water supply, we also always are looking for what kind of economic development it can bring in the regions, in the territory in which this water supply and at the same time the sanitation, properly working sanitation system will be exist. So during this, yesterday we talked about this river basin management. The country, just to provide very small information on this, that the country at this stage are split it, segmented into the 7 river-based basin, and in this respect, the respective management plans either are in the final stage of the preparation or in the process of the preparation. And what we are seeing that in addition, and we a couple of times, nearly every speakers mentioned that this is the one issue is to have the plan, but implementation is really key. And under the implementation, definitely we are looking and think that not only the water for the irrigation or for the poor water production we are talking, but at the same time we also have to think more deeply about the environmental issue. So we at the ministry, I represent the Ministry of Regional Development and Infrastructure. We are in charge of the implementation on the sanitation and water supply side and what kind of policies are exist in the country. We, as an implementing agency, in order to have the water supply to all population, to provide the water to all population, and at the same time to have the properly working sanitation system. At this stage, we are working more than 100 locations in this country, and around €1 billion cost projects are ongoing. And these projects are financed either state budget, nearly half are financed from the state budget, and half of these projects are financed using our development partners' financing resources, which is the mostly loans from the German government, from the European Investment Bank, from the Asian Development Bank, and French Development Agency. This is the situation what we have at this stage, but our goal is to have the water supply to all cities by the end of 2025, and still a lot of work should be done, but at the same time we are working on having the sanitation system with the treatment plants, and also to have water supply to all population in settled areas, in all settled areas by the end of 2030. And it means to translate into the financing that around around 5 billion euro cost projects should be implemented, and we have our action plan in order how we are meeting this goal. And in this respect, what we are thinking that in addition of this needs of financing, what kind of challenges we have, that considering the country structure, we have the very high mountain areas. It's really difficult to conduct all the same time in many places, and what kind of challenges we have that at this stage more than 100 locations, in 100 locations the projects are ongoing. There are no capacity of the constructing companies in the country. We are hiring the international companies who have the experience of conducting such kind of works. And of course we have the lack of institutions who may prepare the detailed designs of the projects. In addition of the capacity of these companies, existing companies, and in addition of this, there are a lot of some kind of needs to modify some kind of projects during the implementation. And of course, what we see that the action plan, how we are covering the country and how much the financing is needed, what kind of challenges we have, that this is the capacity of the companies in the country. So this is something what we try to having some kind of open door principles and try to provide the information in advance that in which area we are going to announce the international tender, and we poorly are conducting the international tender, and based on the source of financing, we are conducting it respectively using our development partners' procedures on this. But another challenge what we have is this tariff, and we yesterday had the opportunity to discuss it. And what we see that the one issue is to set the tariff, another one who have to pay for this, and what should be the composition of the tariff. It will be possible to just for the maintenance and operation costs should be covered by the tariff, and at the same time some kind of awareness campaign is needed in order to provide the information population for what they have to pay for the water, and especially when we have a lot of source for the water, and everyone knows on this in the country, and they really object to pay for the resources, which is plenty of it in this country. This is the understanding of I'm sure to all our countries. Maybe I will stop here, and hope on a later stage I also will have the possibility to provide more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zia, for sharing Georgia's experience, which I believe is not unique. It's commendable, this ambition of achieving the objective of the SDG by 2030 with access to water for all, and but the diversity of challenge you highlighted, not only the financing one, but the capacity one. And you mentioned capacity of constructor and design, but I can imagine also the capacity of your ministry to handle so many projects and so many tenders at the same time should not be underestimated. Are there questions from the floor or online to Mzia? I know it's early in the morning. Oh, please.
Good morning, Zia. Thank you for the presentation. Andriy Maksimovic, IFC. You have mentioned extensive cooperation with IFIs in relation to financing the public sector side of water projects. And we've heard yesterday from Francisco from Aqualia regarding engagement of private sector. Do you have any plans in your roadmap until 2030 to expand cooperation with private sector to finance the much needed needs, as you mentioned? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Definitely, we are really looking for the more involvement and engagement from the private sector in this area. We see that on the management side, definitely there are really room for having the private sector in this company. But at the same time, we do not want to sell or privatize our company, which is the state-owned company, and all kind of assets will stay to the government, to the state. But of course, on the management side, or improve some kind of system in the company, definitely we are interested on this, and we are working on this, and we do have the plan to bring the new or either the existing company, what is existing in the country, to be engaged to the areas, but definitely not for the just big cities, what is very attractive, and I'm sure, I definitely understand that this is a company that to have the fully cities, just as cities and not villages, but at the same time we definitely have to consider that all kind of services and the level of the services should be have, and in all areas, no matter it is the city, capital city, or secondary cities, or either this is the high mountain areas.
Thank you very much, Zia, also for highlighting this issue of regional inequalities and the financing dimension also. Rafik?
Thank you very much. And just quick question. As Georgia is signing agreement with European Union, and according to European Union Water Framework Directive, all members or candidates, I think also candidates too, should have good ecological status of all water bodies, which are receiving wastewaters from cities, villages, etc. Does your agreement include also some kind of financial support to treat wastewaters or to construct wastewater treatment system, etc.? Thank you.
No. Thank you for this question. Nowadays, what we are doing is that to have the treatment plants in the cities, so we have the action plan for how we are covering the cities, having this wastewater treatment plants. At this stage, we have 6 operating treatment plants in the 6 big cities. And also, which is already operates. In this respect, we also have, we have the 9 operating systems, 6 is the under construction, but at the same time, we are in the process of starting the 1 more 6, in 1 more 6 areas. And in respect of the co-financing, we are working on the different type of scenarios, and definitely we see that it will be in line with the requirement what is already set and what kind of agreements we have on this.
Thank you very much. And indeed, the challenge of wastewater treatment is even, in many respects, even higher than one of water supplies. We'll move to the next speaker, but we'll have more time for interaction later. Just want to make sure that all our speakers can intervene. And next is Tamara Kutunova, who will share the experience of the work on financing, in particular in the transboundary context of the Water Convention. Tamara.
Thank you very much. Indeed, since our session is about transboundary cooperation, let me share several insights from the work of the Water Convention on particularly financing transboundary cooperation. Can I have next slide, please? Yes. Okay. So very quickly, to understand why we need to cooperate again, it's a kind of ABC, but let me still refer to that cooperation over shared water resources is crucial to achieve not only SDG 6, but several other SDGs like 2, 7, 13, 14, 16. And in the pan-European region, including the countries of Eastern Partnership, transboundary waters play a key role in socio-economic life of our societies, especially, and of course for ecosystems. And according to the, not the latest, but still the results of the reporting under SDG 652 about transboundary cooperation, we know that out of 129 countries, only, not all of them, but 76 say that the resources, they have financial constraints for transboundary cooperation. So what are these constraints? Colleagues, I think that I need help with my presentation, with the next slide. Yes. So what are the key challenges for mobilization of the financial resources? So first of all, we quite often do not understand what are the benefits of transboundary cooperation. We have to keep on trying to understand what are the reasons why we have to cooperate. And with the Water Convention regularly provide you with these answers, with the examples, and as the example of the Water Convention shows that more and more countries are opening up for joining the Water Convention, and also more and more countries are setting up the agreements and the joint bodies for management of the shared water resources. The second challenge for mobilization of the financial resources is that the transboundary water cooperation and the basin development activities are often perceived particularly risky in the transboundary setting. This we have also discussed many times with the international financial institutions. We work with them, also persuading them to invest into transboundary projects. But this is indeed not very easy, and indeed the investors consider it risky, and this is something we still have to change also in our understanding. And also the countries face financial capacity constraints, and especially under economic turmoils, political situations which we all face now in the world. I hope I pressed now the correct button. No. Okay. Yes. But when we speak about transboundary cooperation, we need to understand what are these costs. So, like with tariffs, we want to disintegrate the tariff, and the same with transboundary cooperation. So there are two big groups of costs, which are the core costs and program costs. So for the core costs, this means that we need, for example, support meetings of river basin organizations, which is not extremely expensive. This quite often can be done in our region with own resources, which the state budgets have, or with the support of international organizations. Then the staff costs of the river basin organizations and secretariats, and this can also be very modest cost actually. So this can be very modest because the staff of the basin authorities, transboundary basin authorities, can be within the ministries or within the agencies, meaning that they do not need actually more cost. Or of course it can be big organizations like ICPDR or the OMVS in Senegal. So of course then you need much more cost. But we just need to understand that there is a variation of also this type of cost. So the cost of buildings, offices, equipment, etc. This is also something which we can usually address with minimum or maximum resources. The cost of communication, information dissemination, etc. So if we look at the program costs, there are more, of course. So first of all, we're talking, of course, about the river basin monitoring. This is what we have been discussing here many times yesterday, particularly about the data, about information sharing, about the equipment, information technology systems, river basin management software, etc. Then preparation of the different plans, River Basin Management plans according to various methodologies, but since we're here, Eastern Partnership countries, we're talking about RBMPs under WFD, which is one of the most exquisite and elaborated methodology to River Basin Management Planning. It is costly, and this is what we have to consider for transboundary cooperation as well, even though we have to understand that, the national parts are much more expensive in comparison to creating the joint management plans at the latter stage. So another cost is the implementation, of course, of the implementation of the strategic plans. And this is what we have been discussing with you, where to take these funds. And here we have to be very creative using the domestic sources, international financial organizations, grants, etc. Development and implementation of the infrastructure project, this is what Mzia has just mentioned, because we all understand very well that, wastewater treatment, for example, is one of the most expensive measure in the River Basin Management Plan, and it's also not extremely popular in the countries, but yes, this is the cost which we have to consider and to find money for. And also we need to consider the cost for management and maintenance of infrastructure projects. This is already usually inside the countries, but also there are many transboundary agreements even in our region where the object is, for example, located on the bank of another country, and usually our countries manage to work with such dams or flood protection infrastructure. So with the Water Convention, we have a work program for 3 years, which is approved by the parties of the convention. And one big direction of our work is particularly about financing and funding the transboundary cooperation. We understand that this is a very important acute issue, and that is why we regularly produce publications. We organize meetings where we share the experiences, and there are many very good case studies. As already mentioned, also through the national policy dialogues, we raise these issues in the EIP region. This is done by OECD, but us as UNEC, we also have experience in Central Asia. Just in the previous project, we developed several investment concepts. This was new for all of us, and let me share very quickly with you how it was done. So in Chutalas River, which is the river shared by Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, there was the JEF project within which the transboundary diagnostic analysis and strategic action program were developed. So based on this strategic action program, we agreed with the countries which measure could be developed potentially as an investment concept. And so we have done this, and we have managed, I mean, with the governments, of course, we have managed to raise a very good amount of money for one of these measures. This is about digitalization of one of the biggest irrigation channels in Kyrgyzstan. So European Union committed for 15 million grant for development of this project, and also EBRD has committed to 65 million of loan, and we're extremely happy that this is another example how the River Basin Management Plan, SAP, call it whatever, and how the joint body, together with international partners, can actually elevate the money for the topic, for the sector, which is not extremely attractive to the investors, as we have heard yesterday, for example. Another example is the strategic action program for the Dniester River Basin shared by Ukraine and Moldova, which is also presented to IFEs and to Ministry of Finances as the document which is officially endorsed by the countries and can be used as a guidance document for investments. And what we also learn in our work as a Water Convention conventions that actually investors are really hungry for the ideas, and if they come across some water authorities and ask them for some random ideas, we say that, you know, there is actually River Basin Management Plan, it's done. In case of WFD, it has taken 10 years to produce it, which means really very thorough work. Another example is from Senegal, Mauritania, and Aquifer Basin. This is also a very interesting example because also it was done by the River Basin organization called OMVS or OMVG, based in Senegal. This is one of the commissions which is really very successful, and they work so much, particularly on attracting investments. And this is actually something which particularly people who work in the water sector and who are trained as hydrologists, environmentalists, biologists, whatsoever, we have to actually learn. This is an absolutely new science to us, but this is absolutely essential for us to learn that we can and have to interact with IFIs to understand the economic, financial instruments, etc. So we can, of course, and we are doing this, we are inviting the experts in infrastructure and economy, etc., but we also have to learn this. And we have to send this message to RBOs, to the River Basin organizations. So in the Senegal, Mauritania, and Aquifer Basin, they started the process with 4 countries, and they have signed the ministerial declaration on cooperation, and based on this, they are inviting the IFIs for development of the investment projects. So, based on the experience which we are collecting, keep on hearing from different basins in the world, we can again and again repeat and recommend that transboundary water cooperation is the key to achieve SDG 6. We cannot work alone in one country. It's also very important for implementation of WFD. Let me kindly remind you that WFD has 3 references to transboundary cooperation in its text and in Annex, particularly devoted to transboundary monitoring. Cooperation, coordination between stakeholders is extremely important. We are, on one hand, we are coming out of silos within the countries, but sometimes we fall in the regime again that we are working just within ourselves and within one agency. And in some countries, this cooperation is much better. In some, it really needs to be improved. So we have to remember about this. So with regards to searching for funding, we still have to search for opportunities at home, so we have to find the domestic sources, and as experience shows, this is possible. The transboundary river basin management programs, call them whatever, SAP, RBMPs, whatsoever, they are very important, and they are the guiding documents not only for the professionals in hydrology environment, but also for investors. And last but not the least is that funding and financing transboundary water cooperation and management must be increased and realized, and all the benefits of cooperation should be demonstrated and shown to all stakeholders. Over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Thank you for this overview. I would also like to very much underline that all the work that we do at the global level on financing very much cooperate with OECD, and that's a very nice partnership also in that respect, obviously building on each other's strengths. Thanks again also for pointing this final element at the beginning. I mean, especially in the transboundary context, this having joint vision and joint planning is fundamental for transboundary investment, for investment that benefit the whole region beyond national border. And you need a platform for that, and this region suffers from lacking sustainable cooperation mechanism in certain transboundary basins, and that's really a challenge that needs to be addressed. And also, obviously, I can imagine that Arnaud might come back on this later. this is the risking, as you mentioned at the beginning, Tamara, of the transboundary operating in a transboundary setting. There are ways of lowering the risk, and what the EU has been doing in mixing grant and loan is a fantastic way of doing so. So that's there are ways of packaging financing that can attract investors and can help country implement the measure that they want to do. And this leads to a very nice continuum with Gerge. Gerge Constantin, he has been involved in these settings in so many different ways, because I mean he's been directly involved so much in the national policy dialogue process in the early stages, but also in implementation of the Water Framework Directive, in transboundary cooperation in the Basin Romania shares, and in mobilizing finance for the Water Framework Directive in Romania. So I know you have a lot to tell us. I also know that you know the time limitation.
You have to support me. I have a lot of slides. I hope that you will not fall asleep. I will not leave you. First of all, I want to thank you to Matthew for the opportunity to speak to you today.
I just want to double check that there are no questions for Tamara. Sorry, I was too quick in the transition myself. Are there any questions to Tamara?
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yep, people online, they can hear you.
Oh, sorry, okay. I got a loud voice anyway. Thanks very much. Thank you both. George, I'm really sorry to delay you, but it just struck me that I didn't hear the word climate. For the first time in a day and a half, I didn't hear the word climate. So my question to all four on the panel actually is, what mechanisms or what approaches did you use to climate-proof the really impressive works that you've done? But how were the projections of future demands and availability of resources arising from climate built into what you were doing? Thanks very much.
So Tamara, what in this specific example, how were investment climate proof? That's the question you have, right?
Mm-hmm. If you mean about the example from Kyrgyzstan, which I did about. Well, I mean, if we talk about WFDs, then a part of the River Basin Management Plan is the investment plan, right? And if it is not WFD compliant RBMPs, then still you have a number of measures out of which you have to still to prioritize what is the most important, what is the most expensive, and which one will bring the most benefit. So it's a very elaborated analysis. It can be very elaborated analysis. It can be a bit less elaborated, but then still you have to discuss it within the team who is the most technically aware of the needs. And in the case which I showed in Kyrgyzstan, it was actually quite quick and not expensive to develop the investment concepts, which was enough already for the bank to consider. And then additional fundraising was done to develop, to expand on this concept idea. But once again, 10 pages, let's say, of the initial description would usually be enough for the bank to see if this is a bankable project or not. And then, of course, we have to consider that if it's about investment from the banks, then you have to agree with the Ministry of Finance about the line and prioritization of your project, because usually the governments have the plan for the loans for the year, for several years, so you have to negotiate a lot within the government then. In case of Ukraine, for example, what we're also doing now, I mean, our Ukrainian colleagues are doing with support also partially from OECD part also, is that there is a plan for reconstruction of the country, and we do our best that River Basin Management Plans are also integrated. There's I mean, more concretely, program of measures, because program of measures under WFD are extremely concrete, and then it's very easy to introduce them to higher level strategic documents at the national level.
Thank you, Tamara. And if I can add, I think that one of the benefits of acting at the transboundary level is really the climate proofing. So ensuring that by cooperation you don't transfer climate risk from one country to the other. So that's actually inherent of the whole financing at the basin level. But if there are no other questions, Jorge, it's okay.
Thank you very much. I will start with the point, Tamara said. We have to look for financing. I assume the money and financing are in the room. The problem that you have to give money back and we have to do something useful. This is the issue. The money seems to be available. Okay. Already Mr. Verdi had explained about the Water Framework Directive and the objective to reach the good water status. And in this, this is an obligation for the member states. Romania, it's, how to say, it's a teenager in the European Union. We have 17 years, till next year we will be adult. But we have to implement this Water Framework Directive. And the most important issue that we have to reach the objective. In order to reach the objective, we have to implement measures. And this is the most important part of the River Basin Management Plan, program of measures. In this program of measures, we have two types. One which derived already from the other directives. The most important mention here is Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, the most expensive and very interesting for financing. And I put it here, the nitrate directives. And there are supplementary measures which has not been an obligation till the Water Framework Directive, like I will discuss hydromorphological alteration. I have to go very fast because I have only 10 minutes and a lot of slides. These are the total cost of our third River Basin Management Plan. You see 21 billion euro, which means from these 21 billions, basic measures, which means this mostly urban wastewater, represent 97%, and in this moment, in this plan, supplementary measure only 3%. The costs of measures have been identified, and the financing sources are plain. Practically, in the River Basin Management Plan, 25% come from European funds, 46% from the local and state budgets, and 28% all resources or loans taken by the operators and local authorities. We still have from this 6 billion, which we don't know from where to take, and we recognized with the European Commission, we will see. In order to receive the EU money, the European Commission put a condition to have a national investment plan for the water sector. This is the enabling condition. And these are the sources we identified in this plan for financing. And you see, we have about 1 billion from this National Recovery and Resilience Plan. It's a plan which has been launched after the pandemic. We have about 3 billion from the EU funds, and we have very important 4.5 billion from the state budget. It's a national program for development. I know Mr. Hunt will have objection, as he had in our discussion in Romania, but practically most of the money will come from the state budget. And this is important for two reasons. that as the government understood the importance of water. This National Development Plan has 9 billion. 9 billion meaning school, roads, I don't know, other infrastructure, and they put it, you know, we put it half for the water. There are also funding from the local public administration, from regional operators. We have regional operators, and this is also a very important issue for financing, and we have from environmental fund. Okay, we have criticized, and we have a problem with the European Commission because they said our level of endowment with sewage and wastewater treatment is very low. Yes, it's very low because this was at the beginning very low, but we increased 20% in these 15 years, with 20% the number of population connected to the wastewater treatment plant and sewage system. And we had 20% in the condition in which we have at least 3 crises, 2 financial and 1 this pandemic. But this is just to show that we are slightly increasing this connection to the system. The problem, because I realize in the discussion here, we are not discussing only the issue of water supply and sanitation, but also the water in general. The water in general in Romania has 2 parts. One, which is related to the water resources, which belong to the state central government, and another belonging to the local authorities. This local infrastructure or this water supply and sanitation. These are the financing. Practically, the state is financing all that means ensuring the water resource for all the uses, monitoring this river basin management planning, and the local budget. They are normally supporting the cost for this municipal infrastructure. Okay, this is the next 3. It's what a challenge. This is from a study done by OECD for European Union. And you see here that Romania has to spend by 2030 the most from all EU member states. Okay, this is also per capita. This is total cumulative additional expenditure here. We are certain on this part. Okay. The problem is we have people with low income, and it's a problem when we discuss about sustainability of the system, meaning the capacity of the people not to build, but to have a proper operation and maintenance. Okay? And we still have to increase our expenditure for the water and water sector. But now we have, I put it here, one of the measures which Romania took, and I think it's a successful measure, regionalization. We practically, and it's very important for financing, we practically try to reduce the number of operators and to increase their area of operation. And we had these advantages: technical capacity, financial capacity, lending capability. This is very important, and I will explain later. Investment planning, also to optimize the available resources, capacity to operate, and capability to meet the EU and water and wastewater directive. And not the last, tariff leverage around the region. Because, and I will try to stop here a little bit to explain why it's important. You know, first bank, after my knowledge, which came in Romania to invest, it was EBRD. And EBRD had the MUDP, Municipal Utility Development Program 1, in which they borrow the Romanian government because they do not trust in local authority and operators. Then, now, they are discussing directly with operators because we have regional operators, we have technical capacity, financial capacity, and they are bankable. This is one of the very important for us now, not the state, it's part. Also important issue is tariff leverage. Practically, the regional operator has one tariff for rural and urban. Rural capacity to pay less, and urban more, and it's a leverage between them. Okay, this is the issue it was before and after. Okay, this is the situation now, and you see a lot of gray parts. Gray parts are not covered by the regional operators. And the policy of Romanian government is to push as much as possible to extend these regional operators to include as much as possible from particularly rural areas, because here we have the problem with the rural areas. Okay. What I want to say before discussing the second part, it's one, the private sector involvement, and we have private operators in Romania, Veolia, and we think that this is an added value. This is a... 3 more minutes.
Feasible?
Okay. Okay, 3 more minutes. This is number one. And this is it's very important for discuss. Second, it's about the tariffs, and I want to tell you this is a challenge because if you cannot increase the tariff for water as you want. You have to keep this affordability at 4%. Then we have the okay. This is the agricultural measures, and here that's the cost, and you see the financing opportunities for the agriculture. What I want to highlight, because we had a project by the World Bank, which in our opinion, financed by the World Bank and assisted by the World Bank, which was one of the most important or the most successful project of this type World Bank has worldwide. And I think, and it was important, this is the loan taken by the Romanian government, 120 million till now, and we have another project starting now with 50 million. Okay, and this is very quickly what we did, particularly reducing the pollution, diffuse pollution by a proper manure management. And we have also the facilities, the techniques to use to be, and we have here biogas as an pilot project. And we have also building the sewage system, which is the project, because sometimes in the rural area, you don't know if the pollution is coming from agriculture or from the lack of the sewage. And here the monitoring capacity of the improving for the Romanian waters and others. And here it comes with a small cost solution. Sometimes only using this plastic and just building will reduce pollution, will not affect your health, and it's easy to be implemented. Okay? To the hydromorphological restoration, this is a new one. We are trying to improve the lateral and longitudinal connectivity. The total cost not yet estimated because there are still projects ongoing to find out how much will cost. Okay. This is the idea to improve connectivity along the Danube. I understood first that Birgit will be here, and I was not, I reduced my presentation. Practically, we want to recognize the Danube floodplain for improving the environment and improving the quality of water and protecting the biodiversity. How it was before, how it is now. And also, this is very important project to ensure migration of fishes upstream of the 2 large dams, Iron Gate 1 and 2, particularly for the sturgeon, which are living dinosaurs. And this project will be a flagship project, but I was astonished finding out how much it will cost. It's about hundreds of millions of euro. It was Iron Gate 1, Iron Gate 2. And the challenge is, at the end, large amount of money, financing needed in short time, we consider, because we have to comply in the short time. New obligation with the Urban Waste Treatment Directive and the Drinking Water Directive. Practically, when this new Urban Waste Treatment Directive will enter into force, no member state will comply. Everybody will have to do something and will have to extend, will include much larger, huge amount of money to comply. It's about limit, it's about the agglomeration covered, it's about, you know, this energy, it's about monitoring microbiology like COVID. We have to need to support the low-income household. I want to tell you that in Romania, there is, by law, support to the low-income family around 7 cubic meters per month, and this should be paid for this low income. It's a methodology how you decide on the low-income households. Could be paid by the local authority in order to support. Decentralization and consolidation. I think that this is an issue to decentralize now the activity, but on the other hand, we try to consolidate, as I said, regional operators. Need for better institutional capacity, and here we are speaking about bankable projects, to have projects to receive money, and we have the assistance of Jaspers in Romania, which are very thankful for preparing the project. And not the last one, climate change adaptation, because this will create new problems. This is, means that the water challenges and financing the water sector will be a big, big issue, because from the water everything will derive. And this is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. I don't know what specifically to thank you for, because you said it all. So, really fantastic intervention. Congratulations above all to your country for giving such a high priority water investment. This is something that we would like to see in all countries. Question to George. Oh, you trigger a lot of interest.
Good morning, and thank you very much for this very in-depth presentation. And you say that Romania is considered a teenager in the EU family, but seeing the results you have achieved in the last 15 years, I would say are very wise when we compare to OECD member countries at least. So I think it's important to highlight it also in a more global context. Through your presentation, I have identified things that could be like recommendation, lessons learned that you could share with other Eastern partner countries that are even more teenagers than, you know, like even more behind. So clearly your message was about regionalization, but there is any other recommendation based on Romania experience that you think is key, you know, because for the other countries to take into account when they are going to go through the similar path that you have gone through?
Yeah, it's open. Okay, I assume that we faces an important pressure to improve the water, particularly the municipal water. And the most important, first of all, is to improve your capacity. Because, as I said, the money are available. Maybe not all, but will be available, but you need to know and to plan properly in order to take this money and to use wisely this money. When we made regionalization, we made because we thought that it's not wise to build power wastewater treatment plant to every commune. And it's much efficient to have a regional system in which this planning is very important, capacity is very important, and also we have this issue of, you know, require the assistant. We have the possibility to have the assistant with Jaspers, which sometimes is not very beloved in Romania, because many are considering that they are stopping the application on other things, but the things will be done better with this. I don't know if for that region the banks had in mind to have such kind of assistance for the countries. But generally this. And then, of course, every country will have its pace. Cannot compare. It was yesterday Austria. Austria invested 40 billion euro. They built even in the mountains the system because they had money. We will not do like this, really. And also, I had the issue of Netherlands, which we are very cooperative. We are considered Netherlands one of the best in the world, and it's considered related to flood control. But for the Netherlands, to pay, it's a question of to be or not to be. Because if we will not pay and not invest, the Netherlands will disappear. In Romania, it's not the case. When we try to introduce a tariff or a tax for flood control, everybody politically say, okay, a tax will not accept, we have too many. And another one of my bosses, deputy minister, said, is dangerous. Why? Because we will take money. If they will be flooded, they will ask money for us, from us. Okay.
Thank you, George, and interesting to see the issue of capacity coming back at the national level, at the transboundary level, like Tamara was mentioning, this core cost. So.
Thank you. Good morning. Milo Fiasconaro from Acqua Pubblica Europea, the European Association of Public Water Operators. First, a remark, if I am allowed. I mean, Mr. Constantin mentioned the new directives. Just to be clear, the figures that Mr. Constantin presented on investment needs for Romania and Europe and impact on affordability that comes from the OECD study of 2020, that study was based on the old directives. So if we factor in the new directives and the new requirements, the investment needs and the impact for the affordability probably will be much higher. I think this is a relevant remark to do also with regards to what was discussed yesterday on financing the catch-up towards the acquis communautaire for the accession country. I mean, the next acquis communautaire will be with the new directives that are much more ambitious. This needs to be taken into account. Then two questions to Mr. Constantin. The first is on money. I would like to ask you what are your ongoing discussion with the European Commission about how to finance, indeed, this significant gap. I mean, in particular, if there are discussion about the structural funds. You mentioned the recovery fund, but is there additional money that you are negotiating for the next programming period coming from the structural fund to finance all the investment needs that are needed, the additional one for the new directives that are needed? And second question, the regionalization process. I would like to ask you what kind, so you said we are not done yet. We are pushing, but we are not done yet. What are the tools that are you using, regulatory tools or other kind of tools, to push indeed the utilities to merge? Are they forced? There is a deadline? What is the trigger or the obligation for the utilities to merge? In which kind of regulatory framework? Thank you.
I will be very short. The programming period is ended. And you know how the money are distributed. It's distributed according with the population. Every country will receive an amount of money from the EU budget. It means we have 40 billions, and it's up to the state how the money will be distributed. And the Romanian government, together with the Commission, agreed that for the water we'll have almost 3 billion. This is fixed. For the next period, we will see. Of course, Romania will continue to ask money for the West, even from 2027, after I retire, but I hope the others will do it, because it's a need and it's very important. And also, there is this issue of infringement. The level of infringement will be so high that will be exit. We cannot pay that infringement. Related to the to the merging, the policy of it was stick and carrot, which means if you want the EU money, you have to merge. This was the policy for this. Didn't receive the authorities which were not part of this regional operators, they didn't receive the EU money. It said, okay, you can do it, but from your money. And I assume they will continue to keep on this because there is politically a will to keep under them, but we have seen that it's better this way.
Thank you very much, George. I would like to move to the next speaker and hope that we will have more time for discussion at the end. So we should have online Mihailo from Ukraine. Good morning, and thanks a lot for being with us. And it would be great if you could share your experience, Ukraine experience in financing River Basin Management Plan implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Good morning, dear colleagues. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm proud to participate in this event. Thank you for this opportunity. Next slide, please. I will try to be very short. The adoption of river basin management plans is Ukraine's obligation to implement the requirements of European legislation, in particular the EU Water Framework Directive. The approval of the RBMPs is included in the plan of priority actions of the government of Ukraine for 2024. RBMP is a government document of state planning for the next 6 years, 2025-2030. In order to implement the European requirements for the implementation of integrated water resources management and to ensure the development of the RBMP in Ukraine, a total of 18 legal acts were adopted at the level of the Parliament, the government, and the Ministry of Environmental Protection of Ukraine. 4 regional water monitoring laboratories were created to implement requirements for monitoring priority and specific substances. Monitoring has been provided in all river basins of Ukraine except temporarily occupied Crimea. The progress achieved by Ukraine in the sphere of implementation of European integration obligations in the water sector is important for the negotiation process regarding Ukraine's membership in the EU. Next slide, please. The legal framework determines that in Ukraine, the first RBMPs for each river basin district are submitted to the government of Ukraine for approval no later than 1st of August 2024, which corresponds to the schedule defined in the association agreement. Currently, the preparation of the RBMPs of the first management plans for all 9 river basins, including the temporarily occupied territories of the river basins of the Crimea, the Azov Sea rivers, and partially the Don, has been ensured. Draft RBMPs have been prepared in full compliance with the approaches and requirements of the EU Water Framework Directive, with the support of European partners, the EU for Environment, Water and Data Program. The achieved progress of Ukraine was evaluated and noted in the analytical report of the European Commission from November 2023. The requirements of the Water Framework Directive in terms of ensuring public participation were met. The draft RBMPs were published on the websites of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and the State Agency of Water Resources of Ukraine in December 2023 for public discussion within 6 months. Currently, the procedure for public discussion of RBMP project is being completed. The State Agency of Water Resources of Ukraine, with the support of international partners, held 13 events for public discussion and a total of 677 representatives of the public, scientific organizations, state authorities, basin councils, water users took part in the public discussion. In addition, a strategic environmental assessment of draft RBMPs is provided. In order to ensure the implementation of cross-border consultations within the framework of a strategic environmental assessment, appeals were sent to the affected, neighboring countries. Next slide, please. Previous slide, please, I think. Sorry. Thank you. RBMPs are aimed at achieving environmental goals, in particular good water status, within the specified times. The first cycle of implementation of the RBMP in Ukraine covers the 6-year period, as I have already said, 2025-2030. The management plans contains a thorough diagnosis of the condition of river basins, their disease, and a list of necessary measures to solve them. The significant water management issues of river basins are caused by pollution with organic, biogenic, and hazard substances, hydromorphological alterations, pollutions, and depletion of groundwater. These problems are exacerbated by climate change and the ongoing full-scale military aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine. RBMPs include a complete list of measures, their content, and problems to be solved. In particular, for surface water, it's measures aimed at reducing pollution by organic, biogenic, and hazardous substances from diffuse and point sources, include the construction, reconstruction, and modernization of treatment facilities and water drainage networks. Measures aimed at improving, restoring the hydrological regime and morphological indicators in case of disruption of the free flow of rivers, the hydraulic connection between river beds and their floodplains in case of hydrological changes, modification of the morphology of rivers. In terms of implementation by the State Agency of Water Resources of Ukraine, these are measures for the revitalization, restoration of water bodies, measures for mitigating channel regulation works, reconstruction of hydrotechnical structures, and their elimination to improve restore the free flow of rivers. Funding of measures provided for in river basin management plans is carried out at the expense of state and local budget, as well as other sources not prohibited by the law. Next slide, please. The water strategy of Ukraine provides for the development of legal prerequisites to recovery of costs for water services, including environmental and resource costs, in accordance with the results of the economic analysis conducted as part of the preparation of RBMPs according to the polluter pays and water user pays principles. Currently, the legislation of Ukraine provides for payment of the following payments by water users. It's rent fee for special water use, environmental tax for discharge of pollutants into water bodies, fees for renting water bodies, and fees for special use of water bioresources. These payments go to the state and local budgets in the appropriate percentage ratio. The economic analysis of water use in our country carried out as a part of the preparation of the RBMPs shows that rent and tax payments don't cover the costs necessary to achieve good water status. The recovery of the cost of water services is from 12 to 31%, and it's not enough. The total need for investments for the implementation of RBMP measures for the first 6-year cycle is approximately 8.2 billion euros. The number of measures will be revised based on the results of public discussion. Analysis of the economic efficiency of the RBMP measures confirms that the main measures are measures to reduce the pollution of river basins. 92% of the program of RBMP measures involves the construction, reconstruction, and modernization of treatment facilities and sewage networks. At the same time, it's important to ensure the integration of the requirements of the EU Council Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Also included in RBMPs are measures to restore water bodies, revitalization, improvement of hydromorphological condition, mitigation of consequences and adaptation to climate change, reduction of clogging, restoration measures, research on the impact and consequences of war actions, prevention of diffuse pollution. The implementation of these measures will ensure the achievement of the environmental goals defined in the River Basin Management Plan, such as achieving good ecological status potential for 13% and good chemical status for 89% of surface water bodies, and achieving good quantitative status for 61% and good chemical status for 37% of groundwater bodies. The declared environmental goals fully correspond to the goals of water strategy of Ukraine and are aimed at stopping the deterioration of water bodies and achieving good conditions for river, lakes, and underground waters of Ukraine. Next slide, please. Achieving environmental goals requires coordination and synchronization of transboundary river basin management policies. An instrument for strengthening cooperation are commissions, in particular the Dniester Commission and the International Commission for the Protection of the Danube River, in which the agency ensures the representation of Ukraine's position. Support for the implementation of the RBMPs requires the development of cross-border cooperation between countries that share river basins. RBMP is an important instrument for attracting investments as the measures correspond to priorities for financing within the framework of European funds and instruments such as Ukraine Facility Instrument, which provides support for investments to promote recovery, reconstruction, modernization, and support for reforms necessary for joining the EU. Instrument for pre-accession assistance provides both expert and technical support to help candidates countries, in particular in the implementation of structural reforms. Interreg Next cooperation program, water issues are included in the priorities of all neighborhood and partnership programs. The objectives of the LIFE program include measures of river basin management plans when selecting projects for funding. Ukraine's plan for the Ukrainian facility knows that it's important to continue alignment with EU water legislation and ensure the implementation of what has already been adopted. This will include the implementation of the first cycle of river basin management planning, the collection and use of water quality monitoring data and other relevant data, and the application of economic instruments to facilitate investment in water infrastructure. Accordingly, it's very important for Ukraine to involve the measures in the RBMPs for the financing of investment funds and instruments, especially in the conditions of limited funding of the state budget due to the war. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mikhailo. And quite some correspondence with the presentation by Jorge, on also reminding that implementation of River Basin Management Plan, while the treatment dimension is the biggest in terms of financing, there are also other costs and measure that needs to be implemented. Question for Mikhailo. Are there any question online, Matthew? No. If there are none, the organizer have promised me that we'll have 5 more minutes for this session, because obviously I wasn't able to keep the time. And so we have all time to listen to Arnaud de Vancey, who will share experience from outside from this region and beyond in EU financing. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us today on this very important topic. As you know, this is really a priority for the European Commission, notably in the context of the globalization of the UNESCO Water Convention, to work globally on transboundary water cooperation. But as you know, I'm working for covering Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And the incentives over there are not the same as in your region. In your region, we could hear about strong legal incentives, strong financial incentives, also some political level of interests, notably by the citizens. But notably in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, we don't have the same type of incentives. And it's rather complex because you don't know by where you should begin. Should you begin with the legal incentives, with the implementation of the legal framework? Should you begin with the political incentive or with the financial incentives? And when we approach the development bank, they tell us, no, we cannot go because we don't have the reforms, we don't have the political will. When we go to the Ministry of Ecofin, they tell us that they don't have the political will and they don't have the reforms, etc. So it's an endless story. So what we thought is that we really need to come together in a much more, let's say, a coordinated way. And this is why we try to develop what we call this Team Europe approach. Okay. So we gathered with 8 member states and the EIB in a Team Europe initiative that is named Team Europe Initiative Transboundary Water Management and sustainable development and regional integration in Africa. So it's a big word, but basically the idea is really to work on all levels, from the continental level up to the national level and regional level. At the continental level, we want to trigger the political interest, working with the African Ministerial Council of Water, with the African Union, and also by triggering the changes also by monitoring what's happening on the ground, having some monitoring systems in place so that the countries can benchmark each other on the progresses they are doing, etc. That creates also further political incentives. Then after, been trying to work at the level of the different river basins, where we try to pool the different resources. Let me give you a very concrete example. For instance, in the Lake Tanganyika, with the authority of the Lake Tanganyika, we have been working on developing a program. Some of our partners told us, hey, we would like to work on the transport on the lake. And so we were working on quality and monitoring of the lake, but we said, okay, what can we do? They want to work on the transport, and we're saying, yes, but we can't, because we don't have the framework for collaboration between the countries and for the management of the transport on the lake. So we said, okay, because we are working with the authority, we can include in our program some further work related to the transport. But also because we were mobilizing the scientific community to look at the lake, its monitoring and status and its levels, notably by mobilizing the European knowledge on, notably with the satellite data, etc. We could also include some data and analysis on the levels of the lakes that is quite important also for the transport. So all of this comes together, and then we can try to be much more efficient in leveraging action on the ground, because we come together with all the different member states, and then we associate our other partners also in this discussion. Then after, what we have been trying to do, for instance, in another region, we are working with trying to de-risk. People, we are always told that it's super risky, the political risk, financial risk, etc. But what we see is that if the countries work together on a plan of an investment plans around a water basin, then the level of risk is actually decreasing. And so people say, no, it's super politically risky, it's complex, etc. Yes, perhaps it's complex, but when it's in place, the risks are decreasing. Let me give me a very concrete example. In the OMVG, the Gambia River Basin, the countries came together to pool funds into a holding, and then after, with these holdings, they are creating SPVs to invest all around the river, from water conservation upstream up to water use and irrigation downstream and hydropower, etc. They all have an interest to see all these investments working, because if the conservation upstream is not working, then after the irrigation will not work downstream. And so by having all the countries working together and pooling together their resources and having all an interest in the outcome of this program, you will reduce significantly the risk of the investment. And on top of this, as all these different countries are different grades on the market, you allow a country like Senegal to take risks for another country that is much more risky, like Guinea. And so by pooling the risks together, you also have an intensive and financial interest for the investors. And finally, in this context, we are providing a guarantee. We are in the process of providing a guarantee to UNCDF that is developing this program. And so this guarantee will cover some of the riskier part of the investments. So we have to do this type of very innovative work in Africa because we don't have these huge funds that you have in Eastern Europe. And so I think this is also what is nice in what when we don't have that much money, you need to reflect a bit more. A last example that I would like to put on the table is really what we're trying to do to mobilize financing for notably nature-based solutions in the context of infrastructure. So what we would like to see much more is when we look at an infrastructure, we look also at this infrastructure within its landscape, not only at the infrastructure. And then after, we look at the nature-based solutions that can complement the grey infrastructure and can reduce all the costs and ensure sustainability and manage some part of the risks, notably flood risk and drought risk, etc., by increasing the carbon storage and the capture of water within the soils, etc. So how do you consider this infrastructure in its landscape and mobilize financing to develop the management of this landscape in the context of the infrastructure program? And for that, you need to look beyond CapEx, because you can work on CapEx, and we can do that, but you need to look at OpEx. And OpEx you don't have in Africa, or it's very scarce. So how do we do that? So we are looking at innovative financing mechanisms also. So we are trying to see what we can do with carbon credits, biodiversity credits, with payment for ecosystem services, levies and taxes on energy production or irrigation, etc., etc. What can we do so that we can have a coherent program between the construction of the infrastructure and the management of the whole landscape in which it's operating. And we see that it's something that is really coming on the agenda also in Europe. We have heard about this during the last 2 days during the EU Green Week. It was all about that. And we hear that our citizens, 78% of the European citizens are now concerned that water resilience should be much higher on the agenda and that we should really take care of this issue. So we see that the perception is changing. And if we don't look at the infrastructure in this context of the landscape, it will be very challenging in the future. So that's what I wanted to share. And sorry if I was a bit long. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Arnaud, for bringing the climate finance in the picture, as you refer, which obviously is an important dimension to be taken up. And also stressing that cooperation of partner is the other side of cooperation of riparian, and strengthening cooperation of partner is also a fantastic means of strengthening impact. And congratulations to you personally on that, honestly. Are there questions to Arnaud? Yes, there is a question to Arnaud.
You mentioned ecosystem services. That is a very important topic for civil society. Do you have any recommendation for our country, Eastern Partnership country, how to implement this instrument in practice? Payment for ecosystem services.
So it's really, I think it's a challenging question, because you need to change the perception of how do you address the work. So you have different ways of doing it. Some are looking at only the NBS, and they don't look at it in conjunction with the development of the infrastructures and the services. I believe that it's important to look at everything together. But what I see is that the River Basin Management Plans are an extraordinary tool to begin to think like that and to integrate these nature-based solutions within the planning from the very start. Looking at alternatives, we have a lot of economic tools that are now existing to compare the economic impact of the different alternatives of management that you are going to take. So if you look at the different alternatives, you will very quickly realize that by investing in nature, you will decrease the need for grey infrastructure quite importantly. and you will decrease the cost of your overall investments, and you will improve also its resilience to climate in the future. So I do believe that this is really something that is super important from the very start. And then after, you have the question of the OPEX. So you really need to work on that, how you are going not only to build your float plane or whatever, but how you are going to manage it on the long term. How you going to make sure that it's worked and that it's sustained. And that's something that it's really important. And there are many examples that are existing. DG RTD in Europe has been doing an incredible job on that. They have been testing a lot of different things everywhere. I know that a number of development banks are also working a lot more and more on that. I know that you have also very good tools within the EU, like EU Invests and Climate Adapt that are tools to provide facilities to develop this type of work. So you can access through this within Europe at least to some real support to help you in developing this type of project.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. I am one more question. So will you fight among you? I was going to do that.
Hello, Monica Altamirano. I'm a specialist in public-private partnerships and system thinker, but here my question is more as a consortium member of Network Nature. Different people of you talk about that the money is available, but the capacity maybe to structure and prepare those investments is not there. I think also you, Tatiana, mentioned that you're making changes in those planning processes about the expertise. Could you share more like which type of skills do you think governments, but also the people doing those planning processes need? And also share anything about you in those planning processes engaging in a pre-competitive phase with the private sector, not just the IFIs, but the private sector who maybe knows how to generate value out of some of those processes, or that impact also water management in your landscapes? Thank you.
And this is a very nice concluding question. I understand I can take one more, and then I suggest that maybe the different speaker prepare a short answer, because I feel that this question was relevant for many of you. So we take the second question and then very short 1 minute concluding remark by all of you. So next question.
It doesn't work.
Okay, thank you. Alexander Zink, Environment Agency Austria, and leading the EU for Environment, Water and Data program. Thank you very much, Arnaud, for your pointing at the nature-based solutions. For instance, in Austria, because George was pointing at Austria to be so high-tech, etc., we have hundreds of constructed wetlands in the rural areas, and they are operating very successfully, and they are, of course, low cost, both in the capital investment and in the maintenance. So my question is now to Mencia, Mikhailo, and George. In your list of measures being planned for investment for Georgia already in the past, largely. Where are the nature-based solutions? Because you're all struggling with such big investments needed and operational costs, etc. The international donor community, the European Commission are talking about NBS, and we have a session coming up on this topic. So do you have them identified and prioritized in your programs of measures?
Thank you very much. So very quick conclusion to the session around on enablers and nature-based solution.
Thank you, and I once again, I'm really pleased that I had the chance to have the panelists of this very, very interesting and very useful discussions for me. I took a lot of notes during this panel, and definitely I also, before responding and during the responding of these questions, I also want to highlight that this is the most expensive issue on this management plan, and this topic is the treatment plans. This is not only in respect of the construction side, but in the operational side. We have to definitely focus on not only the CapEx, but on the OpEx, which is really huge part. And when we are talking about what kind of issues and what kind of challenges do we have, of course, this is a capacity from our side, also on the operational side of it. When we are talking about having the new type of infrastructure, we all are focusing to have in place the EU standard, modernize the infrastructure, which definitely needs the respective people who can manage and operate the system. This is the one issue. And at the same time, definitely we have to concentrate, and we do understand from the government side that water and sanitation should be prioritized, and we are implementing it in our reality. And when we are comparing the amount what was envisaged for the water and sanitation nearly 10 years ago for our budget, at this stage, more than 10 times the amount are spent annually for the water and sanitation. And definitely this is a huge amount, and when this is on the CapEx side. But of course, we in parallel are considering the OpEx, and of course, on the operational side, we have to definitely think, are we make the decentralization in this area, or we have to concentrate and somehow to have a more consolidated system on this for the operational side, not only the OpEx side, but at the same time to have enough capacity on this. This is the issue I definitely want to be touched. And of course, when we are talking about what else should be done on this area, this is that awareness campaign should be conducted, and the continental side, the central government level or regional level, we have to conduct and to have might be some kind of consolidated action plan in order to see in which country who is doing what in order to meet the final goal, which is have the more sustainable environment, and in this respect to share the responsibility on this, on what should be done by each country, especially when we are talking about the transboundary cooperation. It should be also the one of this key. I think, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tamara, shortly.
Yes, I would just like to remind to the EAP countries that you are now in the absolutely unique situation that you have one single methodology for managing the water resources. Because if it was a situation and one country uses one methodology, another, it would be totally different. So really, I would say again, grab this wave and keep on synchronizing your methodologies, approaches to monitoring, sharing and comparing the results of monitoring, developing the shared river basin management plans, share this information, and you are really in a very good position now. So just keep on going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Arnaud?
Yes, just to say that I would like to encourage you, because I think that I'm quite impressed by what I've seen in terms of actions and the dynamics in the sector. So that's really very encouraging, and it's going quite far in the right direction. We really see the progress, and when we see what's happening in other parts of the world, I can tell you that this fact that it's all integrated, that you're working together, it's super positive. It's really positive, and it's something that you need to care for and to value. And just maybe to reply on the capacity process, and notably linked to the private sector, I think one thing also that is very important is to develop an ecosystem for the investment, for the private sector to join, because the water operators, they cannot operate in isolation. They need to operate in an ecosystem that needs to be much more vibrant, to bring in some solutions, innovative solutions, different types of services, etc. And all this ecosystem can be invested in with development investment funds, equity, etc., etc. And this, I believe, is super important. What kind of digital solutions we can bring? Can we have water reuse partners? Can we have more innovation, more, etc., etc. Many things like that, and so that I think is something that we need to work on also to accompany the transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnaud. George, yeah, and then
okay. The answer it's very simple. In all the projects which we are doing for flood control, climate change adaptation, which are financed by the EU, should include the green infrastructure. And the second, related to the Danube River Basin, Romania pushed for 2 projects, Danube Risk and Danube Floodplain, in which we want to ask upstream countries to keep the water on their territory and to not send very quickly downstream, because we cannot face the water to be sent quickly to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. Mihailo, concluding words also in relation to the question raised.
Thank you. I want to say that in Ukraine, of course, we understand that 8.2 billion euro for first 6 years and for first Airbnbs, it's a huge sum. But of course, we will prioritize the Airbnbs measures, but we will do it after approval by government. And then we will determine which measures we can finance by state and local budgets, and in which measures we need help from EU, different investment funds and instruments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for our panelists. Thanks a lot for the very interesting experience exchange. We are a bit late, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely, it was worth it. Many thanks, Francesca. Big round of applause for our moderator as well, please. Thank you. And colleagues in Ukraine, a pleasure for joining us. Thank you. Great to see you online. Thank you. We're going to break 20 minutes for coffee, so we're going to be starting again at 11:10 for the session on nature-based solutions. Thank you, everyone.